Hello and welcome. This is a tutorial on how to set up a web server with MySQL, PHP, and Apache, and also to set up a FTP server to configure all of those pieces of software on any Microsoft product. It can be Windows XP Home, it could be Windows XP Professional, it could even be Windows 2000. It could also be Windows 7. Home or even Premium, either one, you can run all of these on that. So let me start by downloading from the software from each one of the websites and saving them all to the desktop. Alright, so what we need to do, let's go ahead and go to the web. And the first place, let's go to, so you want to kind of type in PHP, and you want to look for, which is Php Hypertext Preprocessor. This is the server program that we want. Let's go ahead and go with the newest version, which is 5.33. And we want to download the MSI version of it. Whoops, sorry. Let me go back to that. Let me go to the downloads here. And let's download the MSI version of this. Looks like binaries. Looks like this one might be it. Let's see, binaries and installer. Let's take a look. And let's go down here. Installer. I would like to see an MSI one of these. This looks a little bit older here, and this is kind of doing this live on the fly. So if you're out there trying to get this to work yourself, you can see this is a brand new tutorial, and I don't want to do the source code. Let me check here back one other place. I just want to make sure, since this one is released, is this one on this download page? Ooh, 4.0, no. No, I was correct in going to downloads. Let me go back to downloads, and I am going to download. I don't want to use one of these, which I can. You could use one of these, but it has to be a Windows version of it. You need a Windows binary for this. You could download the source code or a Windows binary in it, but I don't necessarily use that. I mean, if you want to compile it yourself and have the ability, that'll be in another tutorial, and I can show you how to compile it. But for a Windows installer, we're going to just download an installer version. This looks like the package. This one looks like a Windows installer of it. Let's go ahead and try this one out. And I'm just going to pick the one that's closest to me, which could be one of these. Actually, let's try this one. See what this one will come down. Yes, look, that's good. It's an MSI installer, and that's what I did want. So let's save it. And by the way, even though that I am downloading this in that particular order, it doesn't matter which way you download these. You can pick Apache, or you can pick PHP, or you can pick MySQL. It doesn't matter. There's no specific order you need to, but there is a specific order in the way that you install the software. It is important that you install the MySQL server database first. Then you install the Apache, and then you install the PHP, and it must be in that order. That's going to make it the most compatible and the least amount of trouble you're going to have to be able to get this up and running. Again, so I do want to stress that it must be MySQL first, then it must be Apache second, and then PHP last. Alright, let's go ahead. That one looks like it's downloading pretty quick. Let's go ahead and go to the new one. Let's go ahead and go to Apache. Actually, let's go ahead and go to Google here so you can, in case I make some kind of typo in here. Let's go to Apache. This looks like it right here, apache.org. And I'm bringing it up here, and this is the page that I was looking for. So we can go ahead and OK that download here. And I'm going to look for the download here as well, and I'm going to download the Windows version of this as well. You may ask, why not just go ahead and run? Now we need to look for the Windows version of Apache on here. So we've got plenty of mirrors I see here, and some FTPs as well. It doesn't really matter. You may wonder, well, why don't I pick one of these? And it doesn't matter. Just as long as you're going to get the software on the newest one, it's fine. So let's try this first one on the list. Alright? And this may not be so straightforward on how to download this. This does make it a little bit difficult here. They do change their website quite often. That one didn't seem to prevail. This is really weird. I'm going to try to do it. This is suggesting website. Let's try this one here and see if it's a little bit easier to find. I can see that this can be a problem with finding this. Let me take a look here. I need the binary version of this. Wow, this is going to be a little difficult. Okay, I think what I'm doing, I'm looking at it in the wrong place. There's a lot of other projects that they're doing here. So let's go back and look at the web server. And I think it's right over here. This is one of their projects. So it looks like they've got quite a bit of them since the last time I looked on their website, which has been a little while. Here's what we need. We need the HTTP server. That's what we want to be able to serve our web pages with, and also be able to use PHP. So let's go to the web server on it. And this is exactly what I've been looking for now. So we want to do the newest one, which I believe is 2.2, because it looks like we have version 2.2. Let's look for the download on here. Did I miss it up here? It says there an alpha version's released. I don't want to go with an alpha version of it. What's the most stable one here? Is it listed? So this one's a release. So 2.216 is a release. That one looks like it will be, yeah, this one looks like it'll be the most stable one right here. We don't want to go with an alpha. We don't want to go with a beta, because you want something that's reliable. So let's go with this one right here, which is a released one, which is 2.216. Let's download it. 2.216. You notice that I said don't go with the alpha one. Here it is right here. 2.216 released. And let's see, where is this right here? And we want the one for Windows, which is 132, 86 base processor, MSI with no SSL. We can get it with SSL. It doesn't matter if this version supports it. SSL so that you can do secured websites. So you can it already has it built in to be able to do secured SSL sockets, and that's something that you want to set up to be able to run. So I would go with this one right off the bat. I would personally, but if you have a problem with it, you could go back and do this one. But eventually, you're going to need to run secured sockets layer anyways. At some point, you're going to do your own server in a corporate or in a internet service provider situation. Go ahead and click on it and save it. Alright, that looks like that's downloaded. Let's take a look here. I have my HTTP server here, and I have a PHP, and now I need the MySQL server. So let's go ahead and go back to Google again. And I'll type in MySQL. We want to do the free version of all of these, unless you're going to go corporate with this. Looks like the top one here works, and we don't want to go with the embedded one. We want to use the free one since we're setting this up for a nonprofit. Now I'm going to go ahead and log in, and the reason being is that you need to log in and create an account whenever you're a new user, because they're going to require you to do this before they're going to let you download it. MySQL has set this up now so that they can track all the people who are using it, and they just know. So this is what you have to deal with, but you get to use a free version of it. But you're going to have to create an account and log in. And I'm going to go ahead and log in. I'm going to pause it real quick and then log in. Okay, the one that you want to download, since I've logged in, you want to download the community server, which is apparently is the free one. So I would go ahead and download it. And it kind of in a way is a no-brainer, but I noticed that there's an installer program here. If you look at the size, it looks pretty small. So I would think that the one that's the larger one would include everything you need. So I'm going to go with that one and make things a little bit easier. So I'm going to download that. And this it is. Here it is, the MSI version of it, which is fine. That's what I want, is MySQL 5.51. And it doesn't matter what version you're downloading. This tutorial will work on just about any of them. So I'm going to download this closest to me, which is San Jose. Let me go ahead and save that as well. And I'm going to go ahead and close out of this. Go ahead and let that download. You can see the software here on the desktop. Okay, that looks like it's done. Alright, good. Alright, let's go ahead and install the MySQL first. Let's run it. And I'm going to do a typical install, which is fine. And install. Oh, by the way, this is also Windows Professional if you didn't notice the symbol on the desktop. However, like I said, this would work on Windows 2000, will work on Windows XP Home, and Windows XP Professional. Also will work on Windows 7 Home and also Windows 7 Professional as well. So let's click Next again, and I'm going to configure the server now. Let's bring it up here, Next. And let's do the detailed configuration. Developer machine. This usually can be selected at a later time. Basically, I'm going to be, so server's going to run applications, run on this machine, choose option. I'm going to run it as a server machine. So let's go ahead and click Next on it. A multifunctional database will optimize the server for use in fast transactions, database high speed. This one is fine. This one will work for a multifunctional database because we're going to do on web applications and what have you on here as well. So click Next. C is fine. All the defaults for this installation path is fine. I don't see any problems with that. So go ahead and click Next on it. Let's see. This section of database the person requires the concurrent connections of 20 connections. Well, you know that you're going to need to change this option depending on what you're setting it up on. So if you guys are setting up for a corporate use and you're going to experiment with it, then I would go with this option right here, which over 500 active users in it, which would work fine. Looks like there's a maximum can go of 1,400 connections if you select this one, whereas a manual setting, you know, you could do whatever you want to use the server for. You could probably set this one. This one would be okay to do that. So let's say that we can handle 300 connections just for a purpose of doing this. That's fine. So click Next on it. And if you decide that you need to change anything for the default port, although I wouldn't change it, I would keep it standard, but you may have your reasons in doing that, which wouldn't be a problem. If you wanted to change the port, you would just have to remember exactly where it is whenever you needed to talk to the server remotely. And then setting up web pages externally, you'd need to know what that port number is. Exception for the firewall, if you have this on there, you could, if you have Windows Firewall on there, which I do have it turned on, so I'm going to make an exception for the firewall. Click Next on it. And standard character set is fine. Best support for multilingual. This is if you're going to have different languages supporting it. I'm fine with a standard character set. Click Next. Launch the server automatically. Let's see, include the bin directory. I would suggest doing this because it makes it a little bit easier to find the commands for the path when you do this, so that when you type in a command at the prompt, you can go straight to it, or it can issue a command to the database without having to go to the directory to run it. So I would check this box. Click Next. And your root password. You must remember this. You cannot forget this. If you forget it, believe me, it's a nightmare to try to get MySQL Server running again, at least for Microsoft. On Unix, it's a little bit more forgiving in removing the directories and then setting it back up again. But I tell you that I've had quite a loop going through trying to make this work on a Windows machine if you forget this password and then trying to recover the password. It's not impossible to do, but it is next to impossible. It is just a time-consuming setup to make work. So, just letting you know that, just write it ahead of time. You need to make sure you remember what the password is. I'm going to create my password right now. Enable root access to remote machines. That's fine. You may not like that. I do not want to create an awesome account because then it leaves a loophole in the system. I mean, some may say that this is a loophole as well, but sometimes you want to log in remotely if you're developing the database. So I'm going to click Next and then Execute. Sorry about my Camtasia Studio popped up there for a minute. Again, I would write down your password that you're setting the server up with immediately at this time. Would definitely be in your best interest to make work. Looks like it's done. And since this is Microsoft, you definitely want to reboot. It's always recommended, especially installing software on a Microsoft machine. I can look and see if it'll run right now. Looks like I can come in there and I'll try my password out. And I am in the MySQL database at a command prompt, so I can actually issue commands and check databases that are on there. I'm actually working. Alright, hold and least, let's go ahead and install the Apache server now. Let's run it. Next, accept the license agreement. just fine. Next again. These are settings currently where my internet connection is. Are they important? They are, especially when setting up a web server. What they did is it did a reverse DNS on my current connection, and it put these in here. What I would suggest that you'd want to do is add in your own. So you can add in pretty much anything in here that you like. You can call it a test server. Okay. Whoops. And let's see, we'll put this one in there. Localhost. Local. And then I could put my password, my email in there, which would be fine. However, I'm just going to put in just some kind of a fake one just so you can see that you can put in pretty much anything you want in there. Next. Next again, and then note where it's putting the folder at here on the server as well. Okay. Click next again and install. Remember, I'm using Apache 2.216. And just remember that. And by the way, I'm going to save rebooting the server or the workstation here until the end of the installation here. Okay, it looks like we got Apache's already running. You can see it down here. And I'm going to go ahead and install PHP now. Go ahead and run that. Next, I accept the agreement. Next again. Let's go ahead and change. Let's just change this to make things a little bit easier to find. And this is solely a preference of your own about this, but I'm going to go ahead and remove that and make this run under just PHP. Okay? And that way I know exactly where it's at in the folder. You may decide to do something different, but for this tutorial, that's exactly where I'm going to install it from. So I'm going to go ahead and click Next. And remember, we did Apache 2.2 module. Okay? And just so you know, we may experience one little error, meaning that it can't configure the file because Apache is running. So sometimes if you do this, if you stop the Apache service that's running, if you stop it, and sometimes it can pick up that configuration file. And that's what I'm doing right now. What I did is I run this little shortcut down here that it actually is running a little service for Apache, and I stopped it. So we'll try it this time, but I'm not guaranteeing it's going to work because usually I have to self or manually configure the HTTP conf file inside Apache to get PHP working correctly. But let's give it a shot. So I'm going to go ahead and click Next. And the Apache directory is under Programs. Let's go ahead and find the Apache directory, which is under Program Files, I'm pretty sure. Apache Software Foundation, and here it is here. So it's saying browse the configuration directory where HTTP conf is. Alright, so that under HTTP conf is under HTTP docs. That's usually where this resides. So let's go ahead and click OK. And let's just confirm that. You notice you see the path there? Let's go ahead and click on My Computer, go to C drive. Let's go to Program Files and Apache Software 2.2. HTTP docs index. Well, I don't see the conf file in here, so let's go back. Oh, you know what? I made a mistake. It's under conf. There it is. This is the file we're looking for, and this is what it's asking for. Let's make sure here. Let me just open it just to make sure. This does look like the configuration file, and it is. Okay. So I'm going to close this, and let's go back. I'm going to make sure that that's in the conf Apache conf file. So let's go back and correct that. Browse it again, and I'm going to go back one, and let's go to the conf folder. And there we go. This is where it is. This is where the original setup is. So I'm going to go OK that, and then click Next again. And we've got some new features here. So usually what happens with Apache, it's not a good idea to run everything. And it's probably going to tell you this in here. It's recommended only to select the extensions and modules you need. That's a good idea because there's a lot of configuration that goes on in here. So let me see if there's anything in here that we're missing. Let's see if there's a MySQL. Yes, there is. We're going to be setting up MySQL, so let's make sure we run MySQL. Let's see, the entire feature will be installed. Yes. Now if we're going to use, remember I downloaded before in the tutorial before, we did the OpenSSL. So let's go ahead and run that one. I don't think that we need anything else. Sometimes you might need a zip file setup, so let's go ahead and install that module. So zip, OpenSSL, which we downloaded the version that did it, and we also did MySQL. Alright? So let's go ahead and click. What's the extras in here? Is there anything in here we need? PHP manual. Let's try that and see if that works. I wouldn't mind doing that. If that does work, then great. Let me click next and then install. Everything looks good. Let's see. Nope, doesn't look like I got an error message. And okay, now I'm going to go ahead and restart. Alright, so we want to finish configuring the last part of this, which also includes downloading Filezilla server, which I've already downloaded here, which I will go back and show it to you and download it as well. But we need to finish configuring Apache to set things up. So let's go ahead and do that. Okay, now that we've installed PHP, got everything set up, we want to go back to the PHP website to configure the Apache server. So let's go back to Php Hypertext Preprocessor. And then where you want to go is you want to go to documentation. And what we need to do is we need to make sure that the Apache configuration file supports running PHP. You would think, why wouldn't they just do this when you do the install file? To be honest with you, I can't understand why it doesn't just get installed by itself from the first time that you run the software. Makes no sense, and this is probably the reason why so many people have trouble with getting their server to work. If you do this on Internet Information Server on your Windows machine, it does configure it automatically. But when you're doing Apache, it does require you to add this handler little input into the config file to get it to work correctly. The reason why you would want to do this, you may wonder, because you can't install the personal web server, at least one that works good enough to run this server on a personal basis on home version of XP. A lot of people don't want to have to go out and buy a professional. They have home. It's cheap, and you can run it on there. You can run it even on the home version of Windows 7 or the home. The thing is that you can also run this on 98. You can run it on Windows Millennium. You can even run this on Vista. So it doesn't require you to have specifically an operating system that runs Internet Information Server, or known as IIS. And that only comes on the professional version. So in other words, you could run the entire server running off of a home version of Windows, which is great because you don't need to go out and buy this industrial software to run it, which it doesn't even apparently even need it with any of these products. So that's a good thing. So now what we need to do, since we looked this up, we need to go back and we need to go to the PHP website, go to the documentation, and we want to select English, since that's what the language is that I'm doing this in. And we want to come down here and we want to confine it to where it says configuring it to on a Windows system. And let me see, did I just pass it up? Windows installation on a Windows system. You notice that it does it on Mac and Unix. It's pretty much the same process for all Windows machines that I'm doing this on. Unix install is a little different, and a Mac OS is a little different as well. But this particular one is doing it on Windows. Okay, so let's click on the Windows systems, and you notice. Remember, I was talking about Internet Information Server, or IIS. We're not using that. We installed Apache 2.2 on here, so we want to click on the Apache 2.2 link. And specifically, the websites always change when tutorials are made, which I always notice on the internet. This is to show you that it doesn't matter if this website changes. All you have to know about is that you want to look for the handler add-in. And you come down here on the list and it says right here, Example 1, PHP Apache 2.x as a handler. And that's what we're going to add in. This particular setting, though, seems to not work correctly, which is no big deal. But do notice the path here. This path has been set to be on the PHP, so when you install the program like we did in the previous tutorial, it did put program files in front of it by default. So you need to be aware of the path when you're setting this up and make sure of it. So what we want to do is we want to copy this right here. We want to copy these two files. So I'm going to right click and copy. Then what I want to do is, I'm going to minimize that. What I want to do is I want to go to the Apache's folder. So let's go under My Computer. Close this back down. Go to My Computer. Go to C drive, and then you want to find program files. This just happened to where I installed the Apache software. I probably could have installed it under Apache Foundation without the program files, but this is something you need to be aware of, the paths. So let's go to the Apache Software Foundation, Apache 2.2, and we want to go to the conf folder, and we want to look for the Apache, which is an HTTPD file. Okay, this is the configuration file to run the server. Let's double click on this, and if it doesn't work by double clicking on it, you may have to right click on it and say open with, and then select Notepad to edit this and OK it. And right here at the top is where we want to add those files. If you remember, when I was on the website before, I just went in there and I right click and copied it like this. And I'm going to go back in here and add this in on the top. Whoops, add this in on the top. Alright, now there's one problem with what they show on the website, and this is the reason why I'm making this tutorial, is because the fact that they put these files in here and they don't even bother to show you the updated version of how to set it up. Having experience in setting up web servers before I've done this, so I understand where the problem is, and I'm going to show you a really simple way to tell this, to tell exactly why it's not going to work. Notice the file here on the top. Okay, it says PHP Apache 2.0. Okay, it doesn't say anything else. Now let's go back and make sure under that file by going to My Computer, go to C drive, go to the PHP folder, and we're looking for the little files that it's looking for in here. And if you notice, by comparing it, it says everything is the same, and the reason why I'm telling you about this is because this is why I experienced why this server wouldn't work. So looking at the error logs and wondering why it wouldn't start by default, this is exactly the reason why. So if you look at it, the _2 is missing from the one that we just added in there. If you look, we'll go back and refer to it. You notice here? So in other words, by the default one from the website, you need to add in the new module's name, which is _2, into this. And we'll go ahead and set this up. We'll go to the file and save it. We need to close out of it so Apache can log back into it. Then we're going to come down here to Apache, and you notice that that's red, meaning that Apache is stopped, and it's asking me if I want to start it. So if everything's gone well, I can start the service back up. So I'll click Start, and voila! I've actually run it. So now what I need to do is I need to look for a configuration file to see whether or not Apache is running correctly. And to do that, let's go back on the web, and we want to look for the file name. It's called phpinfo. We want to look at how to set up phpinfo. So let's look. Here's one on the default page. Let's see if this is the code I'm looking for. And I don't see it, but it did take me back to the PHP website. Let's see if we can type it in on the PHP website, and it will come up. It looks like it took me back to that same page in there. Let's try. Let's go back to the manual. Let's see if I can see it from this main page. I wonder if it's in a runtime configuration. Well, kind of like PHP's website, it's kind of getting to be like Microsoft, but a lot of people are going to cringe at me saying that. I usually find this to be faster anyway, so let me go back to this PHP test page. Let's try this one. And let's see if this one. It doesn't matter, Unix or not, it's the same files, it's the same way to program it. That's what we're looking for right there. Look at this, where it took me to that website. Remember? Looks like Cyber City Biz. If we go back, and what I typed in was PHP test page, and I picked this one right here. Now, what's important here is that you don't even have to go to that website, but they showed. I've got a little bit of lag on there. All right, here we go. This is the info that I want to do. This is the info setup to be able to test the web server to see if my settings work correctly. And to do that, I'm just going to highlight this, copy these right here. Right click on it and go to copy, and then I'm going to go to start, run, and then type in Notepad, and then inside Notepad I'm going to go in here and I'm going to right click inside of it and then paste that info. Now it's important that you save this as a PHP document to make it run as PHP. What this is to show the configuration that the server and to confirm that the hypertext or the PHP text processor or script processor is running. So let's go ahead and go to File, Save As, And where we want to save this is into the Apache folder under the HTTP. I believe it's CD, but let's check. I'm going to my computer, and then I want to go to my C drive. Yours may be D or whatever. Just note where you know where your path is. And I'm going to go to Program Files, Apache Software Foundation, Apache 2.2, and I'm going to go to where it says htdocs. This is where the server's default setup. Now, if you have multiple websites running on the HTTP server, it can be in any other different folder that's been set up. But this particular one, on a default install and only one website running on the web server, it's in htdocs. htdocs. Okay, I'm going to double click on it. And now that I'm in that folder, I'm going to go ahead and save one in here under files. You notice that I have some other ones in here already, but I'm going to save this one under test. Oh, can't do that. I already got a name like that. So I'm going to save this one on Apache.php. Okay? And notice that down here on the part where it says save as type, if you leave it as this, it's not going to work because it's going to add a TXT extension right onto the end of that, and that is not going to work. So what you need to do is make sure you select 8 text documents and change to all files. That way it's going to save it just exactly as you see it right here, and I'm saving it into the HTTP folder. You know, so if you wanted to take a look at the path going down to it. So I'm going to save. Alright, we've got that saved. Now if I look back in here, I can see my Apache's running by the green light. Okay, so I do know that it's running and it's configured, so we're good. I can go ahead and close out of that. Now I want to go to the website. So you're wondering, where's the website running at? Well, there's a trick. You can either call it by the computer name, or you can call it by the setup name, which is localhost. It's a localhost / I don't even think you don't even need to put the /, but if I go in there like this, it takes me right there and it says it works. So I know Apache's working on the HTML side, but I want to make sure that the PHP. So I named my file in here, which is Apache.php. Now once I hit enter on this, if it comes up and it shows all of the documentation on the page, you know the server is running both with HTTP and running with PHP on the server. Let me hit enter. And this is the page you're looking for that confirms that the hyperprocessor or the PHP processor is now working and it's accepting scripts. It is now working correctly. If you look at it, goes through all the lists, credits, and just the core, everything. This is a job well done at this point, and everything is working as you expected. You now have set up a server running MySQL, Apache, and PHP. And the final setup is for me to set up the FTP server, and then you'll be in business just as if you had your own corporate website and you wanted to set up these websites for anyone or set it up for your customers or whatever you wanted to do. So let's go ahead and go do that next. Okay, so what we want to do finally is we want to add our 4th setup file. You notice that these are the ones that I've downloaded, and we've configured all of these, and everything's running. If you look down here, you can see Apache is running well, and MySQL is running just fine as well. If you look at here's the MySQL setup right here, and we can actually run. Oh, we don't want to run that. If you want to just confirm it by a text document, remember here's my password that I put in, which you need to remember your own, and I'm obviously at the prompt communicating directly to the database. Okay, so go ahead and exit out of that. We know that everything's functioning on here. So now let's go ahead and one of the best FTP servers I've seen, and especially since it's free, it works absolutely primo, would be Filezilla. Okay, and let's go to the website. It says a free FTP solution. I would do both. You want to test it, you know, here locally. So you want the client and you want the server. So let's download the client first, and it says the Windows client or Windows setup. Let's go ahead and save that as the exe file to run it. I'm okay with that. Looks like I got a blinky thing down here. There we go. Need to OK that download. Save it on my desktop. Okay. And that's downloading. And let's go back and download the server version of it as well. download the file server. And let's save that as well. Filezilla server, which is working. Save it and download it as well. So out of these other ones here, here's the client version of Filezilla, and the server edition's coming over right now. Awesome. Alright, let's go ahead and close out all these other pages. Just logged on to my home server there, sorry about that. Let's go ahead and close this out. Alright, let's go ahead and since we've downloaded them both, let's go ahead and install the client. Let's run it. I'm logged on as Leroy, if you didn't know what my name was. And next, and FTP client is fine. Leave it in that folder is fine for the defaults and install it. Awesome. Works. Installed flawlessly. Okay, good. So exit out of that. Let's go ahead and install the file server. Set it up now. It's almost just as easy. Let's run it. This is fine. Filezilla server, great. And we can leave this as default for the admin page is what this is. That's fine. Install it as a service is great. Some people may not like that. I'm going to leave it as default so that if the machine ever reboots, it restarts everything back up automatically. Being a mission critical server, that would be great. So then you don't have to worry about it once you get the machine back up and running again. It's going to start them up. But however, there are problems with it with every configuration. Alright, let's click next. And install for all users is fine. And let's go ahead and OK it. The server address is 1.27.0.1. Yes, that is correct. Let's go ahead and I'm going to give it a password. Always connect. I'm going to make sure my password is correct. Yep. Let's run it. And you probably would be dumbfounded to find out that that is how simple the server is to set up. But there's one other things. You do need to add some users to it. You can add a group, but you can add a user. We're going to just add a user to it to make this easy. Okay. Okay, so what we want to do is, since we're in general, we want to add user. I'm going to add me in there, Leroy. And then I'm going to give it a password, which is important since you're on the web. You can do bypass user limit, server, a lot of different things in here. But for what we're doing now, we're just going to set this up. We're adding the password in there, and we're going to go to the shared folders, and we want to add it. So let's add in, and we're going to go back to the Apache folder where those HTTP docs were. So we're going to go to my computer, and then the C drive, and then this is where mine is. Yours could be in a different place. I'm going to go into Program Files, and then Apache Software, and then remember, I'm going to the HTTP docs folder, and I'm just going to highlight just that one main folder. That way I can put any kind of web page I want on there through FTP. So I'm going to OK it. And I want to have write and delete and append. I want to have full access to that. I want to be able to create directories, and I want to be able to delete them as well. So this gives me full access to that folder. So it's pretty much everything is checked. Now you can give limited rights to it where people can just download things from it, which is another nifty kind of thing. So if you've got software to set up, you can make it to where that you can download your files from there. You know, say you got a client that you want them to be able to download you know, a big project you've done for them. This makes it possible, so you can let a client download a 150 gigabyte file if you wanted to. So go ahead, since everything is fine on it, speed limits, I'm not going to set any limitations on it. I don't have any problems with it. Nothing about IP address filtering unless it becomes an issue and you need to set it up. Otherwise, I'm not going to mess with that. So I'm going to OK this. And it looks like my server file is configured. You can close this. You don't need to keep it running. It's actually running as a service in the background. So I'm going to go to the client Filezilla, which, remember, these are just the software installs. You don't want to run them again. This is the actual server interface. And I'm going to go to the Filezilla Client. Filezilla Client, which is right here. Let's run it. And my host is localhost. Now, in your case, if it was a website address, you'd have to put in the IP address or the website name that this is being referred to. So, and my username was Leroy, if you remember right, and then let me add my password in there. Now, port would only be, you'd have to put in 21 or another port number if it's been changed. If your file server is added under another port, oh, excuse me, you would have to add in, you know, the different port number, but it does default to port 21. So let's go ahead and connect real quick and see if it does. Alright, it says I got an error. It says attempt file with no name, neither node or server name provided, unknown. Alright, so that's a problem. Let's fix that. Let's go ahead and just put in the local host IP address. We might have to do it this way. There's another way where I'm going to try it. .0.0.1. Okay, let's try it again. Quick connect. And it did. It accepted it. Now remember, this is specific because this is running the file server and I'm doing this tutorial on the same machine. Normally what you would do is you'd find out what the IP address is if it's in your work group. You go to run, then type in CMD, type in IPCONFIG, and then you can tell what your IP address is, and you can log into it just like that. And you put in this IP address, which is our server's IP address. That's just mine, for example. That's not going to work for you guys unless you've set your server up that way. But mainly, what I want to do is I just wanted to make sure that I have gained access to this website, and it looks like I have. I can get into the folders here. Everything I have gained access to it just the way I wanted to. So if you look in here, this is the file in here, the subdirectories in here. I can come out. Let me make this a little bit wider, a little bit easier to see. Oh, looks like this was not adjustable. No big deal. Let's see if I can create a folder in here. Create a directory. Let's go ahead and name this. Let's call it Web Server Tutorial. Let's see if it created it. Yes, it sure did. There it is right there. And what I'm going to do is, once the tutorial is done, I'm going to go ahead and load that right up in there, and I'm going to have that set up so that I can upload all the documents into it. Well, I wanted to thank you for joining me for this tutorial. I hope it's been very helpful for you. It took a lot of years of experience in the end for me to get this kind of working and to be able to set it up very consistently, very quickly. And I'm sure this is going to help you as much as you're going to need to get your server up and running as well. So if you have any other questions or any comments, please feel free to email me, Leroy at 3dmasters.net. Thank you again, and thank you for joining me.